Reminder, I have an official Discord server now. I advertised it on my community tab a while ago, but nobody joined. In 1995, two titans of children's television made plans for their own educational cable channels. In one corner, you had the Children's Television Workshop, the production company behind Sesame Street, and in the other corner, you had Nickelodeon, the first ever cable channel for kids. It wasn't until these two titans joined forces in 1997 that their idea was able to get off the ground, and the result was Noggin, which made its debut on February 2nd, 1999. When it first launched, it aired a mix of shows aimed at preschoolers, tweens, and teens from CTW and Nickelodeon's library. But soon enough, both would start to produce new content for the channel. April 2002 saw a major shift in the network's programming, with the hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. now being entirely dedicated to preschool shows, and the teen shows being moved to the new programming block, The N, which would air from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Sesame Workshop would sell its stake in the network in August of that same year, but would still continue producing new shows for the network until its demise in 2009, when it was rebranded to the Nick Jr. channel, named after Nickelodeon's long-running preschool block, whose shows the network's lineup now almost entirely consisted of. At that point, the N had split off into its own channel, replacing Nick Gas, which was dedicated to Nick's extensive back catalog of game shows. But also in 2009, the N would be replaced by Teen Nick, based on the former Nickelodeon block, Teen Ick.
Yo, what's the deal? This is Nick Cannon, and this is the new Teen Nick.
Most of Noggin's exclusive shows would be short-lived and quickly fall into obscurity, though some have managed to gain small cult followings amongst the few who grew up with them. But if you asked me what was the crown jewel of Noggin, I would only have one answer.
Down upside! Sorry. The Upside Down Show! Hey.
The Umbilical Brothers are an Australian comedy duo consisting of Shane Dundas and David Collins, who first met at university in 1988. Yes, they're not brothers in real life. This might come as a shock to you if you're anything like 6-year-old me. They're pretty popular over there, but have made the occasional talk show appearance or stage performance over here in the States. Watching their stand-up, though, you might wonder how they landed a kids show. And it also made stumbling upon their stand-up on YouTube while looking for the Upside Down show very confusing as a youngster.
What are you clapping for? Shit, that really hurt!
Well, the idea came when producers from the Sesame Workshop saw the brothers' stage show, Speed Mouse, all the way back in 1999, and thought the duo's brand of physical comedy would lend itself well to a children's series, taking particular interest in the concept of the invisible remote. The brothers were hesitant at first due to their commitment to adult comedy, though notably they had appeared on children's television in Australia beforehand.
Here! Here! Here!
A pilot would be completed in 2005, and test screenings proved very positive. It would apparently be screened publicly twice at MIP-TV, but has never been seen since. It would eventually be adapted into episode 8, Beach. The only significant difference that we know of is that Puppet was called Stretch and looked like this. Yeah, I think I speak for all of us when I say I'm glad they changed it. Will this pilot ever be released to the public? What other secrets does it hold? I don't know. The final series premiered on Nickelodeon on October 13th, 2006 with episode 11, Farm. Meanwhile, the remaining 12 episodes from the show's first season would premiere on Noggin over the span of a month. Reviews were largely positive, and it even won several awards. Ratings were high by Noggin standards, but that's not saying much. And in June 2007, the brothers announced that the show had been canceled after one season, 13 episodes. I can't help but think the show might have done a bit better if they had kept it on the main channel. Despite this, they would continue to rerun those same 13 episodes until 2012, though at increasingly ridiculous time slots. But I can't complain, since that's largely how I became introduced to the show. And despite its short run, the series clearly left a strong impression on the young viewers that watched it, including myself. And with such a creative premise, how could it not?
Now there's something you don't see every day.
Yeah, unless you're at our place.
The Upside Down show focuses on the umbilical brothers playing actual brothers, also named Shane and David, and is set entirely in their apartment building. Would probably get a bit claustrophobic if it weren't for the fact that these two have the entire world inside their apartment, with every one of those red doors leading to an infinite number of rooms. Despite being played by grown men, in a way they sort of act as surrogate characters for the preschool audience. Due to the nature of their apartment, they don't seem to leave the house often, and so each episode has them experiencing the world for the first time. With help from us, they have to navigate their apartment to visit an unfamiliar location. It's actually pretty astounding that with just one apartment, they managed to make this world feel so big and exciting to a kid. Watching the show, I always wished I could visit the apartment and explore all the crazy rooms in person. It could have made a really good point-and-click adventure game, now that I think about it. Though, of course, now that I'm older, I realize how living in that apartment would be actual hell. Never being able to find anything or go anywhere. The rooms aren't even consistent. They can't even keep track of them. The whole catalyst for episode 5, Camping, is that Shane and David's bedrooms have been inexplicably replaced. And it's implied this isn't the first time.
Bedroom's gone.
Again.
It actually does feel really claustrophobic in that way. Though at least it allows for a lot of comedy and creativity with the different rooms. The only Flash game this show had was the Schmancy Schmash-Up game. That's schmuzzish for fancy mashup game, which I do think does a good job capturing the spirit of the show in a way, by allowing kids to use their imaginations and draw what the brothers are holding in 3 of the show's cold openings. Oh yeah, the cold openings. Each episode of the show, rather inexplicably, opens with the brothers in a white void. They never explain what this white void is, but it seems to exist outside the apartment. As in the show's actual intro, we see the action fingers enter the apartment through one of the show's iconic red doors after traversing the show's opening titles. To anyone who hasn't seen this show, that probably all sounded like complete gibberish. The cold openings are actually usually largely unrelated to the episodes proper, and instead exist to demonstrate the brothers' personalities and the imaginary remote, while perhaps also being the biggest showcase of the brothers' unique brand of comedy, microphonic mime, as Wikipedia puts it. Speaking of the imaginary remote, I'm gonna hold off on listing its powers for now, but basically in each episode the brothers bestow on us an imaginary remote which actually affects the real world, and the viewer is encouraged to use to help them throughout the episode. I really wanted this to be real. Even as a kid, I noticed that the Upside Down show didn't seem as educational as most of its contemporaries, and that's because its educational elements are a lot more subtle than the average Nick Jr. show. While there are concepts and vocabulary words littered throughout the show that, like Shane and David in the show, a preschooler might be unfamiliar with, it's definitely a show that focuses more on empowering kids and nurturing their imaginations as opposed to educating them. As I said earlier, the whole concept of the different rooms and the imaginary remote sparked my imagination. While it came from an unexpected source, having the imaginary remote as the main source of audience participation really was a genius idea. Put it simply, kids enjoy feeling like they have power over adults and feeling helpful. It's the same reason Jeff falls asleep. Look at that, a Wiggles reference. You guys love that, right? The Upside Down Show is a rare preschool show that is good for kids, and I'd say just as entertaining for kids as it is for anyone else. Shane once described it as an adult show for kids, and funnily enough described their stand-up as a kids show for adults. Like I said, a lot of the humor is very slapstick, but what makes it so engaging, even to someone older, is not just the brothers' contagious high energy and brilliant chemistry, but also their unique performance style, with most props being imaginary and most sound effects coming straight from the brothers' mouths. Come to think of it, between this and Ubi, Noggin was clearly dedicated to showcasing unique minimalistic performance styles that are just as mesmerizing to watch no matter how old you are, and also probably made for ideal late-night stoner TV between Adult Swim. The dialogue, which was highly improvised, as is obvious when watching the show, and I mean that in the best way possible, includes many non-sequiturs and a lot of wordplay. But more interestingly, there's also the occasional innuendo. Yep, the brothers were reportedly not allowed by the censors to jump on the couch, that's imitatable, but they were able to sneak jokes like these into a Nick Jr. show.
Horses do it.
Oh, they sleep standing up?
Yeah.
Yes.
Schmuck, schmay, struck.
That way!
Yep, what about the second part?
Truck.
But a good show is only as good as its cast. Speaking of which... First, there's the two main characters, brothers Shane and David. David is generally more easygoing, while Shane is a bit more easily annoyed by the strange occurrences in the apartment and is a more frequent victim of the remote, which David always demonstrates on him. It's revealed in episode 6, Picnic, that Shane did in fact move into the apartment after David, and also Puppet apparently told David not to let Shane move in.
I told you not to let him move in.
As is shown in the scene that precedes that clip, despite being an outsider, his behaviors can still be just as, if not more unpredictable than David's, and the rest of the people in this crazy house. He can sometimes come off like a bit of a stick in the mud, and David is noticeably given most of the hosting duties. A deliberate choice, since David had more experience with children than Shane, being a father of 2. There is a noticeable level of disconnect between these two brothers. A common running gag in the show being that David will say, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" before Shane answers with a total non sequitur.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Are you thinking what we're thinking? Dancing tonight? You, me, Dave, and 10,000 monkeys?
But at the end of the day, they're both equal in their ignorance and silliness, and either one can be the voice of reason depending on the scene, while still always coming together to achieve a common goal in each episode, rarely being at each other's throats. Puppet is the show's tritagonist, who notably speaks with an American accent, unlike the rest of the cast. He is shown to have more common sense than Shane and David, but as you'll find out, this is a show where there's no such thing as a normal person, and he's still capable of providing some great, well, I guess it wouldn't be comic relief in this case, but he can provide just as much great comedy as the dynamic duo. I am so glad they went with this design over the pilot design, as its simplicity gives it a far more unique appearance. He is very much a puppet sleeping in his puppet theater, but is frequently shown to have aspirations far beyond that, taking on many different roles across the series, whether that be various jobs or an inanimate object. In particular, he really likes to be tossed.
Toss me! Toss me! Toss me! Toss me!
He's also shown to be multi-talented, an actor, director, singer, and musician, though I suppose all of those can also be seen in the brothers. In fact, Shane is very skilled with his marker, as shown in Art Museum. Mrs. Foyle is the show's only major female character, the brother's next-door neighbor. She's reasonably friendly, but slightly offbeat, and you never know where she'll show up, sporadically appearing in different rooms throughout the series, always at the end, often with a different occupation. She plays the tuba, and even sometimes randomly appears in the boys' living room, and is shown to be rather unhelpful on a few occasions.
And where might we find an art museum?
Oh, heavens to Betsy and Susie's. I must be off to work. I can't be talking to you, fellows. Have you checked the teacup?
Also, at the end of movie theater, there seems to be more than one of her, or maybe she's teleporting, and also might be all-knowing or psychic.
I just wanted to let you know that I haven't seen your beach ball.
Thanks.
The last of the characters to appear in every episode are the Schmuzzies, a species of small fuzzy creatures who the apartment is infested with, which Johnny and the Sprites totally didn't rip off with the Fuzzies. David is friendly with them, often looking to them for help, and speaking their language, Schmuzzish, fluently, as he apparently studied it for 7 years.
I spent 7 years studying Schmuzzish. Part-time.
Meanwhile, Shane is more often irritated with them, seeing them as a nuisance, and frequently misinterprets their language. There's only 3, technically 4, other characters who solidified themselves as series regulars in its short run. The first is Shane's beloved invisible pet, Fido the Fly, who appears in all but 3 episodes, and is mentioned in 2 others, with his door appearing in every episode. The obvious joke being that he's an unconventional pet, and he and Shane often partake in unconventional activities together. And there's the action fingers, Knuckles and Pointy, who, as I mentioned, appear in the intro of the show, but only appear in 6 actual episodes, whenever the brothers have to perform a task that primarily involves their hands. In spite of what you might at first assume, they are pretty explicitly shown to be their own separate entities from Shane and David. This is one of those ideas that reportedly was very hard to pitch, and it was good that they used them sparingly, since it made for a nice change of pace whenever they did. Who else is there? There's David's grouchy security blanket with an inexplicable animosity towards Shane, Bob, who appears in Barbershop and Campin', and I also can't help but notice David's beloved pet chair, Spot, picked in the episode Pet Shop, flying by in this scene from
Picnic.
Besides that, each episode features the brothers meeting a kid who demonstrates a simple task through the brothers in a corresponding room, which prompts the brothers to give an instant replay breakdown.
And look at that puppy move.
It's going round.
It is attempting the complete rotation.
Is that going round?
Smooth movement there, yes. He did it. Rotated entirely.
And there's this generic egg-shaped puppet, which they repurpose for many minor characters throughout the series. There's also the voice that narrates the show's intro and endings, but he's not really a character per se, though the other characters do acknowledge him from time to time. There is the voice, though. That's his only name. He's the voice of Adam Smiley. He's the aforementioned 3rd or 4th regular character, appearing in all but 1 episode, Airport. He is a disembodied voice who usually reminds the brothers to knock before entering a room, but is also often very picky about how they do it. It would be easy to think of him as a stand-in for God, with how he is heard but not seen and is seemingly all-knowing, knowing the apartment better than anyone else, and his emphasis on etiquette, but he also semi-frequently leads the boys in the wrong direction. His worst showcase being episode 4, Pet Shop, where he forces them to roleplay as puppies, seemingly only for his own amusement, and directs them to the parrot and the moon, both of which end up being wrong turns. So perhaps he is not the benevolent voice of God, but the malevolent voice of the devil. Yeah, I'm now realizing how easy it would be to form one of those crappy purgatory theories for this show. Though from what I can tell, no one has done this before, so I guess I'll have to be the one. Shane and David's apartment is actually purgatory, which is why everything is so surreal. The brothers don't know their way around, and can't yet fully escape, always returning by the end of each episode. The reason the brothers are ignorant to basic human concepts and activities is because they died due to fatal brain injuries, which caused them to lose most of their memories. Puppet was David's best friend, Matt, who died with him in a car wreck sometime before Shane, which is why Shane is more distressed by the strange occurrences throughout the apartment. Matt was a bad influence on David, encouraging him to do reckless things such as drunk driving. As punishment, he was reincarnated as a puppet and is stuck in limbo, being unallowed to go to heaven, which is why he rarely accompanies the brothers on their adventures. As a human, he always dreamed of being an artist, dreams he can now never fulfill. Each episode represents a trial that the brothers must face before they can enter heaven, giving them a taste of salvation. The children that appear in each episode teaching the brothers new skills represent cherubs, infant angels, guiding them along the way. The benevolent disembodied voice heard in the intro and the endings is that of God, which is why he's only seen talking to the brothers at the end of each episode, and leads them in the right direction without directly interacting with them. The action fingers are angels sent by God to assist the brothers, which is why they're shown entering the house at the beginning of each episode. Mrs. Foyle represents Christ, which is why she is all-knowing and can appear wherever and whenever she wants to, but is always there at the end of each episode. The disembodied voice that is heard speaking to the brothers throughout the series actually belongs to the devil, which is why he seems to know his way around the apartment but is always leading them in the wrong direction and trying to prevent them from reaching their destination. In Christianity, Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies, is an alternate name for the devil, so Shane's beloved pet Fido is most likely a minion of Satan, which explains why he is also often distracting the brothers and misdirecting them. This series is only 13 episodes, but it is rather formulaic, so I don't really see much need to discuss every episode individually. If you wanted to watch the whole show, it wouldn't take much time out of you, and I do recommend it. They're all free on YouTube, but I still find it necessary to give you my top 5 favorite episodes, the ones I would recommend the most. If you want my ranking of the other episodes, here you go. Keep in mind I wouldn't call any of the episodes bad. I mean, in 13 episodes you don't have much time to get bad or much room for duds. It's just that some are better than others. Number 5, Birthday Party. Shane and David are invited to a surprise party by the Schmuzzies. The only problem is they don't know where it's being held. The cold open, along with the celebration button, and all 3 wrong turns are all pretty solid, but what really elevates it to the number 5 spot is the ending, where it turns out that it's actually Shane and David's birthday, and the majority of the main cast is in attendance, including many of the kids from previous episodes, and Puppet is dripped out. Also, this is the second time we see him playing a delivery man, and it also includes David's super sensitive hearing and smell. Number 4, Ice Cream Truck. While reading, Shane and David find themselves with mysterious objects in their hands, which Puppet tells them are ice cream cones, and tells them they should try ice cream. But they have to catch the ice cream truck first. I don't think I'll ever get the phrase
Delicious, delectable, delightful
out of my head. All 3 wrong turns are pretty solid, especially the this way room, and I love the running gag of the random invisible animals getting in the way, with David apparently recognizing them.
Okay, who left a hippopotamus in front of the door?
Had it be me.
Oh, and it's the one that begins with weightlifting. Number 3, Pet Shop. David sees how much fun Shane has with Fido, and decides that he needs a pet. But of course, finding the pet shop is harder than it would seem. Pet Shop is this high because it's one of the only episodes where every wrong turn is an absolute laugh riot. The puppy room has the voice forcing the brothers to be puppies. It's cool whenever they go to outer space, especially when you're
On the dark side of the moon, with a guy selling cheese.
And there's, well, everything about the parrot room. And there's also David's I Need a Pet ditty. Puppet trying to be Puppet, the seal gorilla debate, and the ultimate punchline of the pet that David buys.
I'm going to tell you about this remote while my brother Shane juggles 6 cereal bowls!
Number 2, Camping. Camping sees the brothers' rooms being replaced, so they now have to look for a place to sleep. While I think Pet Shop is the episode where the rooms are most consistently funny, this is the episode where the rooms most consistently contribute to the conflict, each of them being a horrible place to sleep. Plus, there's Puppet's Lullaby, the Boo-Jaw-Jaw Knock, and this is the episode that most prominently features the action fingers.
Just before I say, how dare you call me horizontal, what's horizontal?
Number 1, Airport. Puppet's cousin, Marionette, get it?
She's a lot of fun to hang around with.
And she's really cute, too.
Is visiting, and Shane and David are tasked with picking her up at the airport.
Making a smoothie.
Where could David be? Where's David?
Nice
socks. Not matching. Interesting. The different variations of the traditional Puppet family welcome song. Shane and David trying to be backup singers.
Now there's something you don't see every day.
Yeah, unless you're at our place.
This episode has perhaps the highest amount of quotable lines and moments in a show that's full of them.
Button, button, who's got the button?
I know what you're thinking. Did this guy seriously write down every single button and how many episodes each was used? And the answer is yes. Yes, I did. And I will tell you my findings. At first, I tried taking note of every instance of a button being used across every episode, but that proved way too difficult to keep track of. The mainstay buttons, the ones that appear in every episode, are most of the ones that you'd expect. There's pause and rewind, since they're used in every opening when David demonstrates the remote on Shane. Play, since that's the button the viewer is always urged to press to start the episode. And instant replay is used by Shane and David in every episode to give a breakdown of whatever skill the kid in that episode demonstrates. The titular upside down button and the associated right side up button are used in all but one episode. Coincidentally, my favorite episode, Airport. I imagine they use it as often as they did out of a simple obligation to the show's title. Might have been weird if it seemed like they named the show after a one-off button. Well, I still think it's weird that the show would be named after one of the buttons, but I think it fits the show as a whole well enough. Surprisingly enough, the fast forward button is excluded from 3 whole episodes: Campin', Airport, and Marching Band. I would have expected it in every episode. Slow motion is used in 7 episodes, and is referred to as David's favorite button with a surprising level of consistency.
Slow motion, love slow motion. Now, my favorite, slow motion. My favorite, where is it? Slow motion button.
Makes me wonder if it was actually David's favorite button. The Diddy button is used
3 times.
First in episode 2, Barbershop, with the Very Very Hairy Room song, both the original and the Talkin' Hairheads cover, and second in episode 4, Pet Shop, with David's I Need a Pet ditty, though those are far from the only ditties in the show. There are 2 episodes where an unpause button is referred to as opposed to the standard play button: Art Museum and Campin'. Another surprisingly rare button is the volume buttons. Only in Marching Band and Mini Golf is the volume up button used. And there are also 2 times where a stop button is referred to. Then there's all 82 of the one-off buttons, usually runners confined to individual episodes set up in the cold openings, though some are just one-off jokes in episodes, which I will go ahead and list them all off right now. The stumble button, the dark button, the light button, the fast forwarding button, the start the movie button, the tongue in button, the tongue out button, the dancing button, the stop dancing button, the up button, the down button, the fast forward button, the blow dry button, the jiggle button, the wiggle button, the humongous button, the minute button, the bigger button, the smaller button, the unstick button, the high voice button, the fog light button, the rotate button, the really excited button, the vertical button, the horizontal dance button, the sneeze button, the yawn button, the horizontal button, the get out of here button, the wake up button, the hands up button, the hands down button, the down the hatch button, the inside button, the outside button, the sandwich button, the mute button, the unmute button, the vibration button, the think hard button, the helicopter button, the parachute button, the landing button, the jump out of the book button, the climb on the wall button, the head home button, the bucking Broncos button, the photo finish button, the get off your high horse button, the follow the leader button, the ice skating button, the go home button, the accelerate button, the decelerate button, the disco button, the can button, the dozy-do button, the unstuck button, the flying button, the sky dancing button, the celebration button, the stop the celebration button, the echo button, the seesaw button, the steady button, the dry land button, the zoom in button, the zoom out button, the light button, the heavy button, the unfrozen button, the woo button, the frozen button, the cheerleader button, the run along home button, the Irish dancing button, the stop Irish dancing button, the blast off button, the back to earth button, the slam dunk button, and the home button. Some of these functionally serve the same purpose as each other, but because they were referred to with different names, I listed them separately. And because I did that, might as well also list off all 41 of the known rooms in the apartment, or wrong turns, as the wiki cutely refers to them as, which is probably actually a better name for them, since calling some of these rooms is stretching it. The laundry room, the dance studio, the chair room, the very hairy room, the very very hairy room, the hairbrush room, the rock concert room, the sticky room, the fog room, the Museum of Finger Painting, the Schmuzzy Art Museum, the puppy room, the parrot room, the moon, the snoring room, the wake up room, the shape room, the sandwich room, the no room room, the wind room, the bird room, the paper airplane room, the word room, the water room, the desert room, the South Pole, the funny music room, the marching room, the sky room, the no fun room, the surprise room, the opera room, the great big bell room, the Pacific Ocean, the bicycle room, the frozen room, the this way room, the ice cream game show, outer space, the orange room, and the basketball room. The concept of all these uniquely themed rooms is also something that the Imagination movers totally ripped off. While most of these rooms are entered through the show's iconic red doors, complicating things further, there are times where they enter rooms through drawers and cabinets, behind shelves, behind the couch, through the couch, under a table, and times where they'll inexplicably go directly from one room to the next, or directly from one room back to the living room. Incredibly inconsistent.
The amulet gave me all sorts of powers when I wore it, so please help.
Shane and David are genuinely two of the most powerful characters in fiction. Even ignoring the powers of the imaginary remote, they have seemingly infinite hammer space, being able to manifest objects, including living organisms, into reality. The only limit is their imaginations. For example, in the first episode, Movie Theater, they are able to film a movie with an imaginary camera and manifest costumes and backgrounds into the movie when it plays in the theater. Though this is also inconsistent, since they were able to do that, but in episode 2, Barbershop, they aren't able to cut Shane's hair with imaginary scissors. David also has his enhanced smell and hearing, though the latter only works when he goes Also, both can teleport, can breathe in space, and have the power of immersion, at least when it comes to books. Death Battle, Shane and David versus Adam Sandler's Click. In August 2008, it was announced that a movie adaptation of the Upside Down show was in the works, with what other title but the Upside Down movie. A script was completed, Peter Cutlip, one of the show's directors, was slated to direct. Executive producer Michael Bouchier and production company Blink Films were also on board, but it didn't go past that. It was set to start filming, there were plans for a theatrical release in Australia, it's unknown how it would have been distributed in the US. They made a petition to show support and had the support of Nickelodeon in Australia, but Nickelodeon is an American company first and foremost, which is probably why work on the movie didn't go any further. But David has still expressed interest in completing the movie as recently as 2019. I'm not sure what a movie based on this show would entail. It was confirmed that it would follow the format of the show to a T, which would definitely be a good thing. But frankly, I'd be happy if we got to see any sort of continuation of the show, even if it was just one more season of 13 episodes. And seeing that 2000s nostalgia is starting to become more of a thing, with a few of Nickelodeon's more popular preschool shows from the 2000s getting revivals, it might be more likely than you'd think. Though, of course, the Upside Down show was far more short-lived and is still far more obscure than those shows, so I wouldn't hold my breath, though it clearly still has a dedicated fan base. But even if this is it, at least we can still appreciate what we have. 13 episodes of one of the greatest, funniest, and most inventive children's shows of all time. Play me out, end credits music.